This week on Jerusalem Dateline, a landmark economic conference convenes in Bahrain. It's the first step in the so-called deal of the century between Israelis and Palestinians, but will it work? Plus, a key discovery in the city of David reveals where man may have begun to worship one God. It's out of the book of Genesis and from the time of Abraham. And American football comes to Israel. All this and more this week on Jerusalem Dateline. Hello and welcome to this edition of Jerusalem Dateline. I'm Chris Mitchell. President Trump rolled out the first phase of his Israeli-Palestinian deal of the century as Palestinians in the West Bank and Gaza protested. CBN Middle East correspondent Julie Stahl has that story.
Rioters attacked the Bahrain embassy in Iraq in protest to the U.S. plan rolled out at the Peace to Prosperity workshop in Bahrain. Palestinians rioted in the West Bank as the U.S. offered them a potential $28 billion investment deal over the next 10 years.
We want this to become not a United States plan. We want this to become an international plan. So now that the plan is out there, we're looking for changes.
The Palestinian Authority boycotted the event because the plan doesn't satisfy their political demands, like creating an independent state.
The national rights are not real estate sold and bought with money, and reaching a political solution that guarantees freedom, dignity, and independence and legitimacy for our people must be before any economical program or project, because this would create stability and security for all.
But Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu said the plan could work.
It's a welfare-based Palestinian economy. And what Jared and Jason have proposed in the Bahrain conference is basically to change welfare into investment and actually connect the two. I think that's a brilliant idea. How do I know? Because we did it in Israel, and it worked. That's why we are where we are today.
Other reactions were mixed.
The thing that's very obvious to me is the following. Number one, this is an economic plan that, if it's implemented, is obviously going to do enormous benefit to the Palestinian people. Number two, obviously, it isn't a substitute for the politics.
If we managed to do it 25 years ago with significantly less money, I'm pretty sure that it can be done today with the amounts of money and with the private sector participation if we can achieve that hope of peace for everybody to start working together to achieve what we're trying to achieve.
39 countries from around the world attended the joint U.S.-Bahrain-sponsored economic conference. In his opening comments, Trump's senior advisor Jared Kushner said the summit was intended to stop repeating what didn't work in the past and look at the Israeli-Palestinian conflict through a different lens.
My direct message to the Palestinian people is that despite what those who have let you down in the past tell you, President Trump and America have not given up on you. This workshop is for you. The vision we developed and released, if executed correctly, will lead to a better future for the Palestinian people, a future of dignity, prosperity, and opportunity.
For Israel, there's already signs of a payoff. Bahrain's foreign minister told Israeli press that his country recognizes Israel's right to exist and wants peace with the Jewish state. Julie Stahl, CBN News, Jerusalem.
Well, further north in the region, many believe the Kurdish people of northern Iraq could be strategic allies for the U.S. during America's current crisis with Iran. Recently, a delegation of Christian leaders visited this region to meet face-to-face with Kurdish leaders. They found a people eager to strengthen ties with the U.S., Israel, and Christians worldwide. In September 2017, the Kurds of northern Iraq went to the polls and voted overwhelmingly for independence. They celebrated, but the world either ignored their dream of freedom or punished them economically. But these Christian leaders, including many from the White House Faith Advisory Board, came to reach out to the Kurds. While they came unofficially, their views will inform President Trump about the importance of the Kurdish people.
So our intention was to bring over those who are influencing policy and decisions in D.C. to feel what the Kurds feel, because I think empathy is so important, to understand what they've gone through.
Many saw the Kurds in a brand new way.
I tell you what, there's a very special place. Being with the Kurds is an incredible experience. I've been with Kurds before, met with Kurds, but I've never been in a situation where I could talk to them candidly, where I could get to really experience their hospitality, their sincerity, their, the genuine nature of the Kurds.
They went to the front lines overlooking the Nineveh plain and met with the Peshmerga, the Kurdish military, responsible for pushing back ISIS.
I wish that every American could stand where we're standing today and get the briefing that we got from the Kurdish military officials who helped to liberate this part of Iraq. This was literally the front lines in the struggle against ISIS, and the liberation of Mosul, which is just beyond where we're standing, was the critical hinge point in that victory.
Now, with the ISIS caliphate basically destroyed, the Kurds and the U.S. face a common enemy, Iran.
Shia militias are a very serious danger because they are made by Iran and they are against any kind of freedom or human rights. So there is not a lot of differences between them and ISIS.
That's Iran. So Iran has a huge voice here in this part of the world, not only in Iran, but they have a huge voice here in Iraq. In fact, we were told by the general of the military in this Kurdish region in Iran that Baghdad, the capital of Iraq, is essentially controlled by Iran. He virtually said to us, it's not Iraq here, it's Iran here.
Iran now controls 4 Mideast capitals: Beirut, Damascus, Baghdad, and Tehran. Given ongoing tension between the U.S. and Iran, the delegation sees the Kurds as a natural ally.
I think we need to understand that one of the most practical ways that we can love and stand with Israel and bless Israel in these days is to stand with the Kurds. Because if you look at the configuration of the Middle East today, the Kurds, 30 to 40 million people spread throughout Iraq, Iran, Turkey, Syria, that 40 million people is really the bulwark against Iranian expansionism.
Kurdish leaders told CBN News they're looking to America.
We wait for your help, your support, and your solidarity with the Kurds to help our people here in Kurdistan, to let the American army stay in Iraq.
I want the Americans to know that the only allies of the Americans here in the Middle East are Israel and Kurdistan, and we would like them to support us.
The delegation saw the Kurds as part of the answer to a Mideast in turmoil.
I think the Kurdish people and the nation of Kurdistan, if it can have bona fide autonomy, could set the pace and become the model and become the example and become the solution, a major part of the solution for the challenges we face in the Middle East.
They plan to go back to the U.S. with a message.
First of all, to our evangelical family. We have another people group that love Israel. We have an opportunity to have another area in the Middle East that can bring democracy, can bring stability. What an amazing blessing.
And they're opposed to the kind of tyranny that Iran represents. And I think they can be a valuable ally to us. And I want to see us do more with them and vice versa.
Those of us who love Israel and support Israel, this is a natural ally in this part of Iraq with the Kurds. And so I think we need to foster friends and friends of Israel wherever we can. And certainly that's true of the Kurdish people.
The delegation plans to brief the White House about what they saw and heard. With Iran and the U.S. on the brink of war, it promises to be a timely report about a key ally in the Middle East. Up next, a key discovery in the city of David reveals where man may have begun to worship one God 4,000 years ago. An Israeli archaeologist has uncovered the remains of an altar dating back to Genesis, when man began to worship one God. It's believed to be around the time Abraham met the high priest, Melgisedeck, in Jerusalem. Here's the details about this key discovery from the city of David. Archaeologist Eli Shukron has spent much of his life looking for Bible history in the city of David. He showed us an area he believes dates back 4,000 years and includes everything necessary for animal sacrifice and worship.
In this room, what we have the platform. On that platform, it was an altar, and the channel taking all the blood and all the other going out from the altar, and you collect it here in this place.
In this area, he gave CBN News an exclusive look at what he feels is one of his most important discoveries, kept under lock and key.
If we came here, we can see that this is very, very important finding because this is the heart of the place. This is the pillar.
Sukrun says this stone pillar is just like the one described in Genesis 28, when Jacob had a dream of a ladder reaching up to heaven in Bethel. After the dream, Jacob said, "How awesome is this place! This is none other than the house of God, and this is the gate of heaven." Then Jacob rose early in the morning and took the stone that he had put at his head, set it up as a pillar, and poured oil on top of it. Shukron believes Melchizedek set this stone up in Jerusalem, just like Jacob did in Bethel.
What I am saying, worshiping God the same way like Jacob, or Jacob worshiping God the same way like Melchizedek.
Shukron believes at this spot, man began to worship one God.
And this is the beginning of the monotheism, and because that is very, very special. We are in a very, very important place. Go back to Melchizedek. Go back to Abraham time. Understand which way these people worshiping God in the beginning.
Shukron says it contrasts with ancient worship in other places.
If you go in that time to other places in the world, in Egypt or in Mesopotamia, you can see the temples with golden idols and I don't know, pillars. And here it's simple. The stone, animals, sacrifice. The stone is the house of God, not gold and diamond. Everything is simple. This is what God wants us to be simple. It's fantastic. For what? What reason? To connect it with God.
Shukron says the combination of the altar for sacrifice, the blood channel, the olive press for anointing oil, the place to tie up the sacrificial animals, where they divided the sacrifice, lead him to believe this was the place where Melchizedek met Abraham. Genesis 14 describes the meeting. Then Melchizedek, king of Salem, brought out bread and wine. He was the priest of God Most High. And he blessed him and said, "Blessed be Abram of God Most High, possessor of heaven and earth. And blessed be God Most High, who has delivered your enemies into your hand." And he gave him a tithe of all.
He blessed Abraham with bread and wine. And Abraham gave him a tithe. Why Abraham gave him a tithe? Because he was worshiping God.
A tradition and way of life that continues some 4,000 years later.
What are you doing today? The Jewish, the Christian, we're blessing the bread and wine. Different way, but blessing bread and wine. And we anointed. What all that started? Here in the city of David in the temple of Melchizedek. This is the place.
Shukron says this area was closed to make room for another place of worship.
They filled it, they closed it. Why? Because no more worshiping area. Let's go focus to Mount Moriah, to the temple that Solomon built on Mount Moriah.
Shukron sees this area as monotheism's ground zero, predating the temples of Solomon and Herod on the Temple Mount by hundreds of years.
Because this is the beginning of the mountain, so Temple Zero. Then we have second temple, and first temple, Mount Moriah, but this is Temple Zero. This is the beginning of the monotheism here, with Melchizedek as the high priest.
This area is still being excavated, and one day the public should be able to see for themselves where mankind began to worship one God. Coming up, the story of how one woman survived a terrible terror attack and now lives out her passion to make sure it doesn't happen again. Terror attacks not only leave physical scars, but also emotional wounds that can take a long time to heal. We talked to Kay Wilson in our studio, who experienced a horrific terror attack. She wrote a book about her experiences to help change things for the better.
As an Israeli British-born tour guide, I was taking a friend of mine, a Christian friend, Christine Lucan, for a hike in Israel proper. on the National Trail on a Sabbath day 8.5 years ago. We were accosted by 2 Palestinian terrorists held at knife point for half an hour. They found my Israeli ID. They assumed Christine was also Jewish Israeli. They tied us up, gagged us, butchered her in front of my eyes. At the same time, they stabbed me 13 times, broke 30 bones. I played dead, managed to get up and walk over a mile till I found help.
Wow, it's a miracle you're alive. You've written a book about this called The Rage Less Travel. Tell us about the book and why you wrote it.
I wrote it because in Jewish life, there's an importance about bearing witness, and I don't want Christine's life or memory to be forgotten. I also wrote it because I think a lot of people suffer terrible things. It's this journey through PTSD and vis-a-vis my contact with my fellow countrymen and how clumsy and well-meaning Israel is and that kind of stuff. But I wrote it also to alert the world because I was in court with the terrorists, and I want people to know from their mouths, they said to the judge, and it's on police film, that they murdered Christine Lucan, an American Christian, because they thought she was Jewish. And in addition to wanting to inform people why an American was murdered, you can hear my British accent, my British government, having dual citizenship, through their foreign aid are paying the Palestinian Authority millions of pounds, and in turn the Palestinian Authority are rewarding my would-be murderers. So I wrote it for those reasons. And I wrote it with a subtext to just show how beautiful and well-meaning and kind and clumsy and, what would you say, dysfunctional Israel is.
Well, many people call what they supporting the PA, and as they pay terrorists, pay to slay. So you're trying to fight that.
I am, and President Trump stopped that. Holland have reduced the monies. But the British government, they're obstinate. They blatantly lie. They say, you know, we only give to teachers and to health workers. And I say, prove it. Absolutely prove it. And if I may say about my book, it's a memoir, which means it's a portion of my life. And it's as much about hope as it is about hell. Not one New York publisher, although they wrote back saying this is amazing, it's so beautifully written, no one would publish it. Why? One letter said, because I don't mention the poor and suffering Palestinians. This is outrageous because, first of all, a memoir is about the author, it's not about other people. But then to bring a moral equivalence on my scarred back, on the corpse of my dead friend, and virtue signal, and politically try and make a point out of Christine's murder, it's beyond outrageous.
Well, obviously, you've been through the hell. What is your idea about hope? What hope do you want to convey?
There's lots of cliches, like time heals, God has a plan, and sometimes these don't work. And the hope that I've found, all right, is in the consistency and the faithfulness of people, of my people, and Christians too, that through being friends, through not advising, just through being friends, okay, we're in this together. The Jewish people, we've had a very long history of pogroms and suffering, and we're still here. And the same is for me and any other survivor of terrorism. We are still here, and that is an eternal hope.
When people read your book, what do you want them to take away from that?
I'd like them to feel a sense that Christine's death was not in vain, that it's too late to bring her back, but they would feel enraged with the injustice of the salaries and that a Christian woman was murdered because she was assumed to be Jewish. And I would love them to take away that they're going to take action. If they're not from America, they can lobby their own European governments. That's what I'd really like.
Yeah. Oh, we hope
and I'd like them to come to Israel, and I'll be their tour guide.
Up next, the National Football League comes to Israel. Some of the most well-known players from the National Football League recently visited Israel. They included one of the league's most promising quarterbacks and a recent Super Bowl MVP. Take a look. Deshaun Watson of the Houston Texans became only the second player in NFL history to pass for 4,500 yards and 35 touchdowns in his first 18 games. That means a lot for his athletic career, but when he came to Israel as a born-again Christian for the first time, that was one of the highlights of his spiritual life.
I've always, had a strong faith, but being able to come, to the promised land and the front and center of everything is definitely going to continue to make it stronger.
Across town, current and former members of the New England Patriots came to support Israel's football league and tour Israel. Owner Robert Kraft brought the players, along with the 6 Super Bowl trophies the Patriots have won. Israel awarded Kraft with the Genesis Prize for his contributions to the state of Israel. What does it mean to be here in Jerusalem?
It's my favorite city in the world outside of the U.S. and brings a sport I love here and people I love to the holiest city in the world is a great thrill and always inspires me.
Super Bowl MVP Julian Edelman came back to Israel. What does it mean for you as a Jew to come back here to the Promised Land?
It's awesome. I've been here before. It's unbelievable. I love coming here. People are unbelievable. It's a fantastic environment.
Former quarterback and broadcaster Scott Zolik said walking in the footsteps of the Bible meant a lot.
Then to go to the Sea of Galilee and you read about it in the Bible. I've been to Bible school for 12 years as a kid. You know where it is, but to sit when you put your feet in the Sea of Galilee, it's an amazing experience from the human element aspect.
My favorite thing by far definitely was being able to get baptized in the Jordan River. It meant everything. Just to be able to do that and be able to go back to the States.
Many, like Nate Ebner, plan on coming back.
Some great memories, that's for sure, and hopefully get to come back again and make some new ones. But really just this whole experience from top to bottom, and it's been a very special trip, one I'll remember for the rest of my life.
During the event, 2 Israeli football teams squared off and were coached by the Patriot players. At the end of the event, they traded jerseys. Kraft has brought Patriots and other NFL players to the Holy Land before, and it's likely he'll bring them back again. Well, that's all for this edition. Thanks for joining us. Remember, you can follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. I'm Chris Mitchell. We'll see you next time on Jerusalem Dateline.